Hey guys, it's Saf coming at you with a Raid Shadow Legends video, and we have a patch notes breakdown here for update 8.1, which has just come out today at the time of me recording this. This update is quite light in terms of content features, but I think it brings the most significant change to the way that you will gear your champions and the way that you progress your gear development in months, if not in an entire year. This change is something that has been needed for a significant amount of time, and I think it benefits everyone. I know there's been a bit of communication, and some people have been saying, oh, this is going to make whaling even easier, or it's going to make the people who spend a lot of money even easier. I think this improves the position for everyone equally. Absolutely equally. So we're gonna dive into the patch notes. We're gonna look at the official ones. There is a major change as well that hasn't been included in this patch note that I will talk about in the unofficial patch notes, which absolutely affects every player who uses this champion, and this champion will get used a lot. So what is in this update? Update 8.1, we're adding the opportunity to rework your gear ascension bonuses. Chaos Dust. This is something that we have needed for a while. I actually think what they've implemented is something that I suggested when Sam Devil first came out about the upgrading model and what they needed to do, which was implement a Diablo style system. In Diablo 3 and 4, you could re-roll your substats of your gear an infinite amount of times. It just got exponentially more expensive every single time you did it. You'd have to go farm more resources. This is exactly the same system, except they've made it even easier and even more forgiving than Diablo. So we'll have a look at that in a minute. We've also added the ability to manage your playroom ID. Okay, some quality of life. We're removing limits for purchasing tomes in the bank and adding 2 more packs with primal shards. What is artifact bonus reworking? We are talking about, of course, the ability for you to change the ascension stat that gets selected when you ascend an artifact. You'll go farm your oil in Sand Devil, you'll get that out, you'll try it, and hopefully you get what you want. But 9 times out of 10, you get what you don't want. So that really powerful Savage crit damage gloves with crit rate substats, speed, attack percentage becomes immediately less valuable than the one that rolled with crit damage ascension if it didn't bring that ascension stat, if it had flat HP, because you're losing 20% crit damage, which probably overwhelms the good substats you have. It's just better to get that ascension stat. What this allows us to do is change it infinitely. So the reworking rules I've talked about here, you can basically do any gear that's ascended, you can do it unlimited, but the cost increases. But after the 7th attempt, the cost remains the same. I've got the costs exactly in the unofficial patch notes. Reworking doesn't change the gear ascension level either, so you still have to then spend the oil to upgrade it. It's simply going to change the stat. We can obtain Chaos Dust from stage 25 of both Sand Devils and Phantom Grove. That is a little bit on the high end because especially 25 Shogun Grove, majority of people I know use Gnut and they basically farm 24. I'm going to have to build a 25 team, so we're going to see if I can do that because 25 now is much better. Before, 25 was still good for the lesser oil, but it was pretty close with 24. It wasn't worth the effort of trying to find a 25 team. I obviously do Sand Devil, 25 my 5-star Godseeker Iniri, so that's not really a problem. So it is a problem if you don't have those Iniris, those really powerful champions, the Rehos. It would be nice if it was a bit lower down as well, but they are going to be adding it to events and tournaments, and they'll be available. They'll probably do some different ways for you to acquire it as well, as they always do. I'm sure also that will replace some good rewards. Hopefully it doesn't replace many good rewards. Then we've got the Playroom ID management. After connecting your in-game account to the Playroom ID, you can now use and manage your Playroom ID. Okay. And enable 2-factor authentication. Okay, so hopefully mobile users now can actually use 2-factor authentication, because up until now, you weren't able to manage, you couldn't turn on 2-factor authentication unless you used a PC. So I would recommend, if this is now possible on mobile, that every player enables 2-factor authentication with a Google Authenticator app, because email is not as secure as the app itself, so that you protect your account. Because 9 times out of 10, if your account is hacked, it's because you didn't have 2-factor authentication. If it's available on mobile, definitely do it. Shop changes, we're changing the price limits, changing price for rare, epic, and legendary tomes, removing the limits. I don't really understand the limits. If you want people to whale, let them whale. Then we get some champion lore updates here. Actually quite a lot more lore updates. And then we get to my favorite section, the official patch notes. It's what I like to consider the actual patch notes that probably should have more placements in the patch notes that we just kind of like sneak in the bottom. So let's see. Now when plus is tapped near the Curse City keys on the top level, timer for when the Curse City keys is shown. Fine. That's not really an improvement. Nobody really cares about that. We know it resets on reset. Fix the bug that causes Lissandra's transference skills when fighting the Crypt Keeper. Okay, little bugs there. Fixed a visual bug that duplicates champions. They did fix the Carge the Rye bug. Now, I experienced this bug where Carge the Rye's back with a bang would not reset the cooldown and activate Timid for some reason. I don't really know what the cause of it was. It must be something programming within the way the skills were configured, because there was nothing in the static that I could see. But they fixed that, which is good, because that was actually really frustrating. It was reducing their value because you would revive them and you wouldn't get the value from that revive. So that's really good change. Glad to see that they're still focusing on making the bugs not happen on these champions after they're released. It's very important. We fixed a bug that caused Clan Quest full upgrade and epic skills not be completed, with Wuji specifically, probably because of Wuji's A1. Wuji is one of those heroes that basically, one of those champions that basically has a different attack when they attack on the A1 if there's a condition, and it's configured as a separate skill. So I would imagine it had books on there that it didn't have, so that's why it wasn't activating the fully upgrade. They probably just removed the books from the passive hidden skill that you don't see in game, but is what is used to actually attack. Fixed a bug that caused Merciless Artifact Set to decrease a random skill cooldown on each hit when using multi-hit abilities instead of once per attack. I actually tried this with Gnut after we were playing around with Hydra. I know Nub Raids did a very big video on it. This should have been fixed the moment they detected it. It was so broken. It was so crazy. My Gnut always had A3 available. Every single time I needed it, I would A3 and I would get like 3 turns back. That paired with a refresh set, I could just A3 constantly. It was so broken. I've seen a Trunda hit for 45 billion on Nightmare with one Trunda because she's just constantly resetting her A2. So this was unfortunately a fix they had to do. It just took them a very long time. They should have done it like as soon as they saw it. I don't understand how these types of bugs get through playtesting, because surely you just put it on a multi-hit champion, you attack someone, you notice it's decreasing it. It's not like the Nogdar bug. I always refer back to the Nogdar bug. That's a very typical bug you would see in game development. Because what's happened is one champion with one specific ability interacts with a new boss in a very unique way. There's like 820 champions. Each of them have 3 to 5 abilities. You've got thousands to test. You're not going to be able to unit test every single ability. So those types of things can happen as players get their hands on the game. But something as universal as our new artifact set is giga broken, that you can literally just put 4 pieces on a champion and test it. Those should be fixed. That's a pretty poor bug to let through. But it's fixed, so at least it is, back to where it should be. That's a good thing. But that Merciless, like when we tested it, was so broken. It was such a crazy thing. I was starting going, should I just put every champion that I've got in Merciless? Fixed the bug that caused CVC points and tag team not to be displayed. That's just a visual bug. You were always getting the points, but you couldn't see it when you completed a CVC tag team battle. Fixed a bug that caused a red dot indicator on all champion pass and forge pass when the challenges were completed after a player had reached the maximum. Thank the Lord. I do not need to come in and go, oh look, I'm at Forge champion pass level 892 because of the Xena pass. That's a really, really helpful fix. That's really annoying. And then fix the bug that caused the Borgoth's easy prey passive to trigger when miscreated monster has a War Master and shield. Fair enough. There's a major missing change on here that we're going to talk about in the unofficial patch notes that should absolutely be in this patch fix because it's a big difference. I know they've commented on it, and I'll see if I can pull up the actual comment that they've had on the change to Gnut specifically, but even their explanation of that change is pretty poor. They're misunderstanding the problem. So that's the official patch notes. It is light on content. This Chaos Dust and the way that you can get the Chaos Dust is really good. Let's finish the unofficial patch notes and I'll do a bit of explanation as to why I think it is so good. So in the unofficial patch notes, this is information that I have checked into the client side data of the game so that I can check things like how the multipliers work, how the different conditions work, what drop rates we get, what are the stats of the opponents we face. It's all available on the client side. We reverse engineer it so that you guys know what you're fighting and how to approach it. And I can always pick up on little things that don't get noticed in the official patch notes, like the number one thing that we're going to talk about right now, which is Gnut on his A3. His A3, obviously everyone knows, is his maximum HP, his enemy max HP hit. It hits really hard. That's why he's so powerful. Each individual hit does 10% of the boss's max HP, but at the same time, it destroys the defense of the target. Now, the skill stated, it does 3% per hit, up to a maximum of 30%. So you would need to do 10 attacks in order to fully stack that up. However, when they implemented and released Gnut, I'm pretty sure they just copy-pasted Harima's ability, because Harima does exactly the same thing. She destroys defense, but they didn't change the 5% to 3%. So what was happening was when Gnut was using his A3, he was actually destroying the defense by 5%, which meant he could fully deplete he could fully destroy the defense up to 30% within 6 attacks. So it was basically 2 A3s instead of 4. And it's a pretty significant change, because if you have teams that are running Gnut, who is using the A3 before other champions going in, they're going to do a lot less damage now if the target has a lot more defense, right? We're talking like Sand Devil 25. There's already been a lot of people have been messaging me saying, my Sand Devil 25 team is broken. Have they changed something with Acrizia? They're doing less damage. Acrizia hasn't remained the same. What they've done is they've nuked this passive. They've actually bug fixed it to do what it's meant to do. In all honesty, it's not like they're trying to mess with you. They've simply fixed it to what the skill should have been doing from day one. Why it's taken them 6 months to do this, I don't know, but now they've decided to do it. So it means, like, for example, Sand Devil 25, normally when you use a Gnut A3 for the first time, it will take his defense to 12,070. It's now instead going to take it to 12,900, give or take. So it's about 850 to 870 more defense still on the boss when your Acrizia attacks, which is going to affect how much damage she can do. So that is something you need to check with all the teams that you're using Gnut for, that the defense reduction is going to be reduced. Now, let me just talk about how it works with Cruelty. I was given this message from a community manager over in Plarium. Raiders, we've received a lot of messages from you about Gnut's A3 change after the release of 8.1 update. Here is the thing. Some time ago, 6 months ago, we received a report from a player that Cruelty Blessing doesn't work after Gnut uses A3 on the enemy. That malfunction was caused by the incorrect multiplier for the decreased defense parameter. Firstly, decreased defense here is formatted like a debuff. It's not the same thing. It's a completely different effect. It has nothing to do with the decreased defense debuff. This has been fixed now, and the skill is working according to the description. We do apologize for not informing you about this in advance and missing the point in our release notes. We will do our best to avoid such mishaps in the future. Like the most significant footnote of the patch notes they missed. It's just, you can't really write it. But let me just clarify this. Cruelty has nothing to do with this change. Cruelty is still not going to work with Gnut. Why? Because defense destruction is a single individual component of the way that defense works, right? You've got 3 forms of defense manipulation. You have a debuff, decreased defense. You have defense destruction. This is the same thing as if you were destroying someone's attack value, HP value, if you were destroying their speed value, accuracy values, defense values, all of these different things, resistance values. They're all the same type where you're destroying a particular value. That's a second type. And then you have ignore defense after the fact. So it always goes, it destroys the stat, then you debuff the stat, and then you ignore the stat in that particular order. So Cruelty is coded as a stat destruction effect, the same as Harima is coded as a stat destruction effect when she uses her ability, the same as Gnut's A3. Now the difference is they have caps, right? Cruelty can only destroy up to 20%. Gnut and Harima can destroy up to 30%. So just like with Cruelty, where you have multiple champions with Cruelty, you might have a 5-star Cruelty, which means you can destroy 15%, and a 2-star Cruelty, which can destroy, 10%? So they can both work together to destroy the defense value, but the moment that the 2-star, the moment you've destroyed more than 10%, the 2-star's Cruelty is worthless. The 5-star can go all the way up to 15%. But they can't do it separately. They're not going to do 2 sources of defense destruction. They all work towards a single stat destruction. So what they're trying to tell you here is we made Gnut's A3 do what Gnut's A3's description should be doing. The fact they've tried to include Cruelty is confusing the matter, because Cruelty is not going to make a difference. When Cruelty gets to 20%, Gnut is going to take it another 10%, right? It might get them there quicker, right? If you have a Cruelty if you have a 6-star Cruelty, for example, when you attack with a single attack, that's going to destroy, I think, 5% of the target's defense. I think that's how it goes. I can't remember exactly the numbers. I know the boss's is like half. But say like you attack, assume it is 5%. The first attack from the Cruelty champion will destroy 5%. Then Gnut will come in with a 9% destruction. So now the defense destruction is sitting at 14%. If Gnut does another A3, the Cruelty cannot destroy any more defense. So Cruelty will not work again. Essentially, what you take away from this is if you have Gnut, you don't need Cruelty, unless you need to stack the defense destruction quicker. Because otherwise, Cruelty is going to be worthless after Gnut has fully destroyed the defense. Like Clan Boss, for example. If you've got Gnut in Clan Boss, he will eventually get to the full destruction if you've got him in any form of 2-1. But if you're going at 1-1, Cruelty will be valuable because you can get the defense destruction quicker. But once you hit that 20%, Gnut will overcome it, and the 20% that you got from Cruelty would be worthless. So they've confused the matter here. It has nothing to do with defense debuff. It's a single stat of defense destruction that Gnut, Harima, and Cruelty can all work towards a single outcome, but they don't do it separately. They're working towards it, the other one. They don't stack together. It's all one stat, and that is the final thing. So at most, you can destroy 30%. But you can do it in any combination between the various 3 different sources, but you can never do more than 30% in one go. So that's what, just wanted to explain that in detail, because I feel like this explanation is a pretty poor effort to give the clarity that you need. It has nothing to do with Cruelty. They've just changed it so that Gnut's A3 is now doing what it should have done when it was released. I just don't know why it took them 6 months. So the other thing they fixed is Merciless. As I said, now it is once per attack. It's still pretty good. It's still the best set in the game. It's just not giga broken. Let's talk about the Chaos Dust here. As I've mentioned in the patch notes, it says it's unlimited rolls. The cost that it's going to be when you scale it, it goes basically +1 until 9. So you start at 3, then it goes 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then 9. After the 9 cost, it's going to be 9 continuously until you stop re-rolling it. By that point, hopefully you've got what you need, but sometimes you can get really unlucky. It's going to drop from stage 25, and it's an additional drop alongside the oil, and it's going to have 1 to 3 quantities that is equally distributed. So the way that the game engine is going to work is you complete stage 25, I roll the dice, I have an 8% chance that I'm going to get the dust on top of my oil. And if I do get the dust, then I have a 33% chance it's 1, 33% chance it's 2, or 33% chance it's 3, rounded. You know, it's basically what, 33.34%. They're equally distributed. So you've got an equal chance to get 1, 2, or 3. Now, this is almost what they should do to Iron Twins. If they applied this model in terms of drop rates to the way that Essence works in Iron Twins, it would be so much better. Because you're not taking away from my coins, you'll just give me a chance to get bonus essence. It would be so much more of an improvement if you did this in Iron Twins as well. I will suggest though that 8% wouldn't be the right number in Iron Twins. You'd want something like 20%, because you can only do 6 keys or 12 keys a day, whereas Sand Devil I can run as much as I want. But 8% in Sand Devil feels pretty good. I've seen a lot of positive responses from most of my community, and people trying and running it, that they're getting good quantities of this dust with very limited energy. And the drop rates being additional means it's not punishing you from actually getting the oil that you need to ascend it to begin with. So it's enhanced the value of Sand Devil, and it means that actually now you can get what you want on your items. Now, there is lots of stuff in the game update as well. There's a new forge set, which looks very interesting. It's going to be a new variable forge set. And there's lots of things coming up around some new champions that I've seen some information on, but because I don't have much confidence in terms of how it's going to be delivered, when it's going to be delivered, in what format, I'm going to leave that out of this patch notes because it doesn't affect you right now in the game. All I can tell you is there is a very, very good new Forge Pass set coming up, and there's new champions on the horizon that look really interesting. I don't really have any information on this new daily login champion either, but I have a feeling it might have something to do with the Bannerlord. We'll see what happens. I'll just leave it like that. With that being said, let me just show you why Chaos Dust, in my opinion, is the biggest change that they have done to the game in such a long time. So we got 20 of each type when we first started, and I used it instantly on one of my amulets, because Whisper, for me, the perfect amulet that I have is crit damage with flat stat attack, and then a crit damage ascension roll, right? This is what I want more than anything in the world. I want crit damage with attack. You can see I've got something similar here, but I didn't get it, right? Because what I had to do, this is the old system. Look how many that I have had to ascend, and every single time I didn't get the crit damage. No crit damage, no crit damage. Look how many I went through. Some really good amulets here to try and get the crit damage. That good attack was not so good, but it is better. I went through so many of them trying to chase crit damage main, crit damage ascension, and a flat attack. And because of that, it cost me substantial amounts more oil, because every single one of these would have cost me 60 oil. So 60 plus 60 plus 60 plus 60. So I'm having to use a lot more of my oil than I would not have wanted to. Instead of just upgrading one thing to 6-star, I'm upgrading like 20 artifacts to 1-star, and then it doesn't roll well, so I have to move on and go farm another piece. I changed this amulet today. I've changed this amulet. It used to be a flat HP, which is not desirable, because even though this has got like insane substat rolls, the flat HP immediately makes it not as good as an amulet that had less attack but 12% crit damage, because 12% crit damage will be more damage than flat attack. The only reason why we prefer flat attack is most of the time these other substats are not valuable for a damage build, unless I need Whisper's A1 for the weaken, right? If I didn't need her weaken, then accuracy would be useless. The only thing worth anything is either HP to stay alive, but I don't really care about staying alive. I just want to kill, attack. So losing the crit damage is enough to make me go and look for another amulet. So I re-rolled this in one roll and it went from HP flat to crit damage. This amulet now is the best amulet that I have in Night Revenants by quite a margin. Look at the difference in stats. I'm going to gain an extra 51 attack, 1000 HP, and I'm going to gain a bit more accuracy, and I'm going to get the same amount of crit damage. So I've gained damage and survivability and accuracy. It's by far the best thing on my account right now, and the Chaos Dust has allowed me to do that. The other thing that most people will look for in terms of damage build, and this is where I think this affects everyone equally, is crit damage and crit rate gloves, right? The thing you want to farm is in lethal or savage. You really want this kind of setup here. I think I have some crazy ones. These gloves here are a classic example of why Chaos Dust is going to be amazing, because in all sense of reality, this would be, if it was defense percentage, it wouldn't be so bad, but really I want crit damage with either crit rate or crit damage, speed, and crit rate substats. But because it rolled defense flat, it's like lost a substantial amount of value. Now I can just come into here, I can use this, and I can go rework, and I can try it again, and hopefully it gives me crit damage. It gave me HP percent. Still not good enough. I can try again, and I can farm this material, and I can do this as many times as I want until I get what I want. I'm not getting what I want here, so it is going to be frustrating, but eventually I'll get what I want. Now, I'll leave it at defense percentage here because I don't want to burn all of my Chaos Dust. It's still reasons for me to farm stage 25, but now that I'm getting this, I can keep trying. That's 20% is better than flat defense. Flat defense would have given me 80. This is going to give me 288. So actually, I could leave it as defense percentage because it benefits a defense-based champion with defense here, you know, as an option for Savage Glove. There's also a lethal glove down here. You can see I've got HP. This is not great for HP. It's really not what I want. So I can rework it and hopefully I get crit damage. It's going to be a lot harder for some of these, the gloves, because you have a lot more potential outcomes. But the most important thing they did, and this is where I'm actually super impressed, and I want to praise Plarium here, they have actually made this very forgiving, because you can't get the same thing you've already got. There is no limit to how many times you can try it, and they actually cap the cost after 7 attempts. So you don't infinitely scale it to like really bad RNG where it costs you like 50 of this Chaos Dust. Once you hit 7, if you just keep on doing, you know, you just want to keep re-rolling it, then you can. And it might be in the future that actually we have substantial more crit rate for whatever reason. So I can still use this piece in 6 months' time and go, do you know what? I don't need that 10% crit rate now. I'd much prefer the attack percent. I can re-roll it again and get attack percentage. My pieces are dynamically flexible. I don't have to keep farming new gear. I don't have to farm this amazing glove or forge this amazing glove and instantly have to go, it's not as good as my other one because it didn't roll crit damage. I actually have the availability. So from an endgame player, it's great because it doesn't feel like I'm running hundreds of dungeon runs to get one good piece. It rolls well and then it's useless because it didn't ascend. But equally, for the sort of late game, mid game player who maybe doesn't have the resources to farm dungeons endlessly, if you have that one really good piece, you can make that one really good piece as best as you possibly can now without having to go and refarm everything. So it benefits everyone equally, in my opinion. I don't think this is bad for anyone. The first thing I'm going to be doing is figuring out a way to find a Phantom Shogun team for 25, because I've only ever farmed 24 because I've used Gnut. I'm going to have to see if I can do a 25 run, because now that's much more important. And I'm still running my Godseeker and Ninja team, so 25 is in a good farm as well. So it does create a bit more of a potential, more of a requirement for you to push the 25 stages, which I understand is very difficult for a lot of players if you don't have the right champions. I would have preferred that they gave a little bit more across the board. Maybe that we could get some further down here so that people could actually farm a little bit of the dust. You know, maybe it starts at stage 17. So if you can do 17, at least you get some. Maybe you just get 1 on an 8%, 1 on an 8%, 1 to 2 on an 8%, something like that. You know, a bit like how Potion keeps scale over here. It scales up bit by bit. You know, you basically can get superior potions from stage 8, but it scales much better. And then we know by stage 20, it's way better to do that because you don't get lesser potions. I'd have preferred that, but in its current form, well done, Plarium. You have thought about the problem and given us something that is very forgiving that we can continuously chase, and also gives us dynamic approaches to the way that we gear. Our gear progression is going to rapidly improve now because we're not going to farm Savage 100 times, get those 1 pieces of really good gloves. They rolled really well, and then we don't get the Ascension, which invalidates their value. That was one of the main complaints when Sand Devil came out. All of my good gear, I'm going to roll. So all of my speed boots, I'm going to roll the Ascension on, and I'm going to go through them all, and I'm going to go, okay, I only really want speed with speed substat. So this, useless, didn't get the speed. Useless, didn't get the speed. Useless, didn't get the speed. Some of these might be really good rolls. Like this would be really good rolls, but an attack percentage speed boot with defense percent, unless I need to stay alive, is worthless. I'd much prefer speed. So I can instantly go through all of my speed boots now and just re-roll all of them until I get speed on every single one. So it's like that. That's so important for every account. It's so much fun. Will it lead to stat bloat? I mean, we're beyond the point. Who cares? There's so much stat bloat in the game. But well done, Playroom. A really good update considering it's not much content in it. I think it's one of the most impactful updates for gear progression. But please, Playroom, make sure you put things like Gnut changes in the patch notes. This changes the way that the champion works quite significantly. His A3 now requires 2 more attacks to get to that 30%. That's a big change of a champion for you to miss out on the patch notes. All I would suggest to people, if they're suffering with the Gnut, you probably just need to push your other champions up with a bit more crit damage if they're max HP like a Crizia, and adjust it that way. So anyway, guys, thanks for watching this patch notes. Good luck if you are re-rolling your Chaos Dust, and I will catch you in the next video.